Oh, hi there. 2022 was a phenomenal year for lost media discoveries, and 2023 is shaping up to be incredible too. You know, if the internet archives don't get taken down and media preservation is sent back by a decade in a modern burning of the Library of Alexandria. So I want to take some time to celebrate recent lost media discoveries in part 2 of what will hopefully be a long-running series covering found media revelations. And we're going to start off with one of the most popular discoveries of the year so far, the 2 pilots for Bluey. Bluey is an Australian animated show for preschoolers, and I have to tell you, I feel like if I watched this as a kid, I would be a way better person. Before making this video, I had never seen Bluey, and I felt like a total idiot tearing up over a preschool show. But I went online, and I am not alone. Like, if you want to feel parental love, even as an adult, you need to watch this. The series is about a 6-year-old dog named Bluey and her family, a younger sister, Bingo, her mom, Chili, and her dad, Bandit. The show's creator, Joe Brum, based the series on how naturally his daughters played with each other and wanted to demonstrate to parents the importance of imaginative play. In 2016, a 1-minute animation was made by a small team in their spare time that served as Bluey's pilot episode. This short animation had Bluey being pushed on a swing by their dad, Bandit. Bandit's on his phone and isn't paying attention and pushes Bluey too hard, making the swing circle around the entire set and crash into him. According to Brum, it was just unsafe. You could never put that on kids' TV. So the following year, 2017, a longer 6-minute pilot was made, shown off at the 2017 Asian Animation Summit, where 52 7-minute episodes of Bluey were ordered by the BBC and the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. In anticipation of Bluey's debut, ABC published an article with screen grabs and 1 minute of the 2017 pilot. When Bluey finally premiered in 2018, this pilot episode would be remade into episode 6, The Weekend. And if I was to tell you that Bluey was a success, it would be a colossal understatement. It instantly became the most watched children's show in Australia. TV Week listed it as one of the top 100 Australian TV shows of all time after just its first season. Junkie listed Bluey as number 14 in its list of 50 programs that defined the decade, again after just 1 season. And in 2021, Rolling Stone listed Bluey as the 96th best sitcom of all time, the only Australian show to make the list. Because the show was met with such universal acclaim, its 2 unaired and unreleased pilot episodes became the subject of an intense search effort, trying to track down anyone involved who might have a copy. And while some of the most classic TV shows in history still haven't had their pilots publicly released, and if they do get released, it's decades later, we have been blessed with both pilots of Bluey, because on February 4th, 2023, the 1-minute 2016 pilot was posted on Twitter by user ThatOnePickle that they had gotten from an unnamed source. And just 5 days later, they would post the 6-minute 2017 pilot, ensuring that not a single second of this modern classic goes unseen.
Because I see you out there sometimes and I wonder if you're on the juice, maybe. You know, Chemical X.
No, I haven't taken any of that. You know, they test us for steroids and...
Cartoon Network's NBA All-Star Slam. To promote the 2003 NBA All-Star Game on TNT, the network teamed up with their sister company, Cartoon Network. On game day, Sunday, February 9th, 2003, Cartoon Network aired the NBA All-Star Slam Marathon from noon to 6 p.m. in the lead-up to the game. The NBA All-Star Slam featured 13 interviews with NBA players and their favorite Cartoon Network characters, where they would introduce episodes featuring them. The marathon was heavily promoted on Cartoon Network for weeks, using this classic video of giant-sized Cartoon Network characters playing basketball among the skyscrapers of Atlanta, Georgia. Like, they played this so often, it has been burned into my brain. Seeing it again was a serious nostalgia trip. This promotion must have been a hit, because it would continue in 2004, 5, and 6, and a similar event in 2015, 16, and 17, called the NBA All-Star Jam. Even though these marathons were single-day events, only being shown right before the All-Star Game, they aired during prime time, and the 2004 to 2006 and the 2014 and 2017 marathons all appear to have been preserved. But the inaugural 2003 NBA All-Star Slam Marathon has proven difficult to find. One of the few interviews that was available online was with Bugs Bunny and Stephon Mayberry of the Phoenix Suns, posted on YouTube by the late animator and voice actor C. Martin Crocker, who did some of the animation on Bugs. Once folks started to notice that the marathon was missing, a search effort was formed that was able to come across a few clips. In 2019, Captain BZ found 4 of the 13 interviews. Among the clips was an interview with Shaq and Godzilla that was one of the highlights of the whole event. But these 4 interviews, and the one posted by C. Martin Crocker, were all all we had for over 4 years, until March 19th, 2023, when out of nowhere, the great hero, Retro CCN, posted all 13 interviews, closing the case on the 2003 NBA All-Star Slam. The Diamond Brothers, South by Southeast. The Diamond Brothers is a series of children detective comedy stories by Anthony Horowitz, following the world's worst private detective, Tim Diamond, and his far smarter younger brother, Nick Diamond. When the first book in the series dropped in 1986, The Falcon's Malteser, it was an immediate success, and in 1988, it was adapted into a movie called Just Ask for Diamond. The film starred Dursley McLinden as Tim and Colin Day as Nick. It was released on VHS and gained appreciation from fans of the book series, despite a low production value. 3 years later, in 1991, a 6-part miniseries was released on ITV called The Diamond Brothers, South by Southeast, serving as a sequel to the movie, retaining the same lead actors. But for some reason, they decided to skip over the second book in the series, Public Enemy No. 2, deciding to adapt Book 3, South by Southeast. But it was actually the other way around. For whatever reason, Horowitz wrote the TV miniseries before writing the actual book, making the book South by Southeast a novelization of the TV series. And where fans of the books were well aware of the Just Ask for Diamond movie, even among the die-hard fans, this limited series was obscure, leading many to believe it was simply never made. Though there was some evidence to prove it did. Some magazine clippings, TV guide listings. It was recognized by the British Film Institute, and it was even listed on the author's website. So it seemingly was real, and there were people who claimed to have seen it, giving us a glimpse into what this TV show might have been like. Based on their accounts, it was written and directed by Horowitz, and produced between Red Rooster and a Dutch film company that allowed for filming to take place in Amsterdam, where the book is set. After these 6 episodes aired a single time, they were never given a VHS, DVD, or streaming release of any kind, and the author had expressed no interest in such a release. To compound the mysterious nature of the TV show, it's said that during this single broadcast, there were technical issues while playing the 3rd episode, resulting in it being cut off early and the remainder being tacked on to the next episode. So with the show more or less proven real, it became highly sought after by fans of the Diamond Brothers book series. But it wouldn't be until 2017 that we would get our first look at the show, when an article by Radio Times was unearthed that included a single still of South by Southeast. Soon after, a poster was found, along with the VHS cover for a potential Spanish-language dub that's believed to have never been released. We would have to wait 4 more years until 2021 when we would get our first video clip of the show, uploaded by J Dragon Arc Productions. They clarified in the comments that they do have the full series, but would not post it because of copyright issues. But this did confirm that there was at least one single copy in existence. Finally, on January 2nd, 2023, Matthew Hopkins uploaded the entire series to YouTube for everyone to enjoy. Fear Factor Spring Break. Fear Factor was a cultural phenomenon when it released in the early 2000s, and at least for me, it was my first exposure to Joe Rogan, long before his podcast. It's one of those shows that was so popular that it seems like anything that aired with the Fear Factor logo could never be considered lost. And that's why Fear Factor Spring Break is one of the most surprising pieces of lost media. If you haven't watched the show, most episodes have 6 contestants competing in extreme stunts. At least one is a gross out stunt, with eating bugs, animal parts, or handling something gross. The last person left standing wins a cash prize. The whole thing was hosted by Joe Rogan, running from 2001 to 2006, with 2 separate revivals, one in 2011 and another in 2018, that was hosted by Ludacris. Maybe because online video sharing was in its infancy during its initial run, but episodes of Fear Factor were difficult to come by. In 2010, Chiller began airing reruns, though they still excluded a number of episodes. Eventually, Hulu would get the rights to stream the series, making almost all episodes available. But strangely, there was one single episode missing from all forms of streaming and video sharing platforms. This episode was MTV's Spring Break special, airing on February 22nd, 2002. When reaching out to Netflix and Hulu about why this episode was excluded, they claimed copyright issues. Though there's very little information about this episode, an archived GeoCities page gives an unbelievably salty review of the episode. All 3 stunts were gross out, being submerged in a tank of squids, drinking a Fear Factor margarita, and bobbing for apples in a vat of snakes, all for 50,000 pesos, which is just $5,000. And I don't know, just $5K to have to munch on a bunch of animal nuts? Maybe times were tough, or maybe I'm just a coward. There was very little information on who the contestants were outside of a fan site who said there was some guy named D. Morrison. But on February 24th, 2023, over 20 years after Fear Factor Spring Break aired, Lost Media Wiki user Race Olympics, who we'll be hearing more about later, was able to secure the lost episode from a private collector. And it does indeed include some guy named D. Morrison. He actually won. All stunts were gross out, and maybe it's just me, but in this episode, Joe Rogan looks just like Donkey Kong. Chucky won a play. Though they're less common today, every major movie used to have its own video game. But for every classic like GoldenEye 64 or Spider-Man 2, we got a dozen ETs or Charlie's Angels. Seriously, movie tie-ins gave some of the worst video games ever made. Sometime in the 2010s, we as a society just decided that we were better off letting LEGO make video game movies based on whatever franchise they saw fit. But in the once oversaturated market of movie tie-in video games, one franchise was surprisingly neglected, the horror series Chucky. But the biggest thing holding it back was an almost guaranteed M rating. That and games where you play as a villain with little to no redeeming qualities are pretty rare. But in 2011, Tick Games saw potential in the franchise. To help secure their endeavor in making a Chucky video game, a Kickstarter was formed in October 2012 with a goal of $925,000. By this time, they had already spent 18 months on the project and spent $500,000 on the rights to make the game. But their Kickstarter only raised $585. And this was around the time where everything got funded on Kickstarter. Like, people were just throwing money at anything on the site. So even though substantial work had been completed on Chucky Wanna Play, the people had spoken. After the abject failure of the Kickstarter campaign, the project was abandoned. A playable build of the game has long been known to exist, but when contacting people involved in the game, it seemed like everyone involved had moved on. Today, the only officially released Chucky video game is the 2013 mobile game Chucky Slash and Dash that was just awful, and it seems to have cemented the idea that the franchise cannot be translated into gaming, but I think it just hasn't been given the right chance yet. On February 18th, 2023, a prototype of the game was posted to the Internet Archives by user Riley5411, who claims to have found the game on an old Xbox 360 dev kit. When going through the game myself, it was nothing groundbreaking, but I really do think it would have been a fun experience. If completed, it could have even been a cult classic, in the same vein as American McGee's Alice, given its over-the-top violence and the role reversal of playing as the villain. Landy NES. For all of you dirty, dirty criminals out there who would dare violate federal copyright law and play a video game emulated on your computer, know just how incredible emulators are. And one of the early pioneers of emulation was Alex Krasivsky, who developed one of the first emulators for the Nintendo Entertainment System, Landy NES. A public beta was released on September 8th, 1996, version 0.1, pre-release stupid version, as freeware for MS-DOS, making it one of only 2 NES emulators that had been shown off to the public. And at this point, both could only run a few basic NES games with audio and visual glitches. Alex was joined by Merritt Faislin, another pioneer of early emulation, helping make Landy NES compatible with most NES games. For what happens next, we don't really have a clear picture. It seems that Merritt took the updated version that he helped make, renamed it iNES, and sold it on his website for $35. And this isn't illegal, it's just kinda shady. And again, we don't have a clear picture, so maybe this was done with Alex's blessing. But whatever really did happen, Alex Krasivsky would lose interest in the project when NEStical version 0.3 was released. And iNES has proven very influential to NES emulation, creating the .NES file format that's even been used by Nintendo themselves for the Pocket NES and on the Wii's Virtual Console, all of which was standing on the shoulders of Landy Krasivsky and his Landy NES. But as emulators became better, Landy NES would fall into obscurity. Eventually, the original servers that hosted Landy NES went defunct and were not archived on the Wayback Machine. But quietly, on June 30th, 2020, archive.org user Shiva Shah uploaded the iOS for the program Hacker Chronicles, which is just about the most 90s name I've ever heard. It could even work in the 2000s as a Korn song. But this disc included a variety of different programs, including the long-lost Landy NES. But because the contents of this program weren't explicitly spelt out, the upload wasn't noticed until January 5th, 2023, when Waluigi BSOD used the website Discmaster to search for vintage files on archive.org.
Now, this cartoon ain't like most of your land-loving cartoons. This cartoon has not 1, not 2, but 3 different endings.
SpongeBob, Shanghaied, You Wish. SpongeBob is a character that needs no introduction. I mean, he was the yellow guy of the 2000s. In the classic episode Shanghai, hosted by Patchy the Pirate, an anchor lands on both SpongeBob and Squidward's homes. Alongside Patrick, they climb up the anchor to investigate, finding it is attached to the Flying Dutchman's ship. At the end of the episode, the Dutchman plans to eat them, but SpongeBob steals the Dutchman's dining sock, and in exchange, the trio gets 3 wishes, where they promptly waste 2. Now this is where things get a little different depending on when you watch this episode. If you watch the episode today, SpongeBob gets the final wish, and he wishes that the Dutchman was a vegetarian. The episode ends on a psychedelic bus where the Dutchman has turned all 3 of them into fruit. But if you watched this episode when it debuted on March 9th, 2001, for the final wish, Patchy lets you decide at home. Viewers are given a number to call where they can vote on who gets the final wish: SpongeBob, Patrick, or Squidward. And on that day, Patchy reveals that SpongeBob gets the final wish, and that's how the episode has played out ever since. We would have to wait 8 years before the unused endings were included on a DVD box set in 2009, but it did not include the live action segments of Patchy if Squidward or Patrick had won the vote. And we wouldn't get to see them until 7 years later, when in 2016, the YouTube channel Dark Lucario 3000 uploaded both missing Patchy segments, but in Spanish, so the original English audio was still lost. But just recently, on January 26, 2003, Twitter user Lamal Pizzo posted the English recording of Patchy announcing Squidward as the winner. They were able to get this off the Mexican TV station Canal 5, and though it was airing in Spanish, the English version could be heard through the secondary audio programming feature, allowing users to switch between Spanish dubs or the original English. Currently, only the English audio from Patrick's ending has yet to be found. Space Monster Wong Ma Gui. Space Monster Wong Ma Gui is a 1967 South Korean kaiju film, which might be the country's very first attempt at the genre. The movie is about the titular monster who arrives in a UFO and is unleashed by aliens who are looking to take over the world. The planet's defense is led by ace pilot Oh Hyung-won. During the battle, O's wife is kidnapped by the monster. A young boy named Spider is caught in the mix and attacks the monster, Ant-Man style, crawling into the monster and attacking it from the inside. The movie was shown off at many film festivals throughout Korea and continued for many years after the film's release. But screenings became increasingly sparse until one day they just seemed to stop. And in the following decades, Space Monster Wong Ma Gui was never released in any other medium and considered lost. But despite seemingly vanishing, the Korean movie database listed 3 known prints, and in 2008, there was a series of toys that were based on the movie by Korean designer Hong Ji-hoon, who saw the movie at a local screening, proving that it did still exist. And eventually, it was discovered to be available for on-site viewing at the Korean Film Archives Library. Luckily, just making this a case of endangered media rather than flat-out lost media. And while this satisfied the preservationists in the lost media community, others still longed to see this kaiju movie for themselves. Only 15 seconds of footage ever found its way online, and it was just covered in watermarks. But it seems that there was at one point a version on YouTube with no watermarks. But the search would finally come to an end in the best way possible. In 2022, SRS Cinema secured the North American film rights, and in January 2003, officially released Korea's oldest surviving kaiju film, Space Monster Wong Ma Gui, on Blu-ray. The Game of Life. Game shows hold a very special place in the lost media community. Even some of the most popular in the genre have gone missing. Maybe it's because they aren't necessarily rewatchable, or there's no overarching story, but game shows are frequently forgotten about when preserving media. Even shows that aired fairly recently in the 2010s aren't safe. And I want to talk about 2 separate searches, and I want to do that for 2 reasons. 1, because there were some very recent discoveries that deserve to be celebrated, and 2, both searches are very close to being closed for good. The first of the 2 I want to cover is The Game of Life. Running for 30 episodes across 7 months from 2011 to 2012, with reruns airing until 2014, The Game of Life was created by the Hub Network. That name, I know. And as you might have guessed, it's a game show adaptation of the classic board game, The Game of Life. The show had 2 families of 3 on a virtual ride based on the board game, with chances to win cash and prizes, though they did add a lot of quiz show elements that weren't present in the board game. The show wasn't exactly a hit. It briefly aired on Discovery Family, with the first 26 episodes available for streaming on Tubi, but removed soon after because of licensing issues. And by the time anyone realized The Game of Life was missing, it was too late. They were no longer available anywhere. But hot on the trail is our returning hero, Lost Media Wiki user, Race Olympics. He got in contact with the show's host, who didn't have any copies of the episode. Members of the cast and crew he contacted were no help either. But one of the show's editors did have a sizzle reel on their website that had brief clips of most episodes. More episodes would emerge in July 2021 when Lost Media Wiki user Halo Fan found 5 episodes on a private tracker, and the YouTube channel Fampy Ken posted a few episodes online. Race Olympics would find more episodes on October 7th, 2022, after securing them from a private collector who got the episodes when they were streaming on Tubi. And finally, on March 5th, 2023, Race Olympics uploaded episode 28 and 30 to the Internet Archives, again from a private collector. Currently, there is only one single episode remaining, episode 29. This episode is declared found on the Lost Media Wiki, but this seems to be an error. It goes to a link to the Internet Archives where the episode is still missing.
Are you ready for a brand new season of Family Game Night? Well, let's go!
Family Game Night. Just like our last entry, Family Game Night aired on the Hub Network, but the Game of Life walked so Family Game Night could run. Instead of just making one life-size version of a board game, Family Game Night turned Hasbro's entire board game library into its own game show. Hosted by Todd Newton and based on the Hasbro Family Game Night franchise by EA, the show had 2 families competing in mini-games for cash and prizes. These board games were all based on Hasbro properties like Guess Who, Scrabble, Cranium, Jenga, Battleship, and some games were slightly modified, like a basketball version of Connect 4. The series fared much better than the Game of Life, lasting for 5 seasons and 101 episodes from 2010 to 2014, with reruns airing until 2016. But just like the Game of Life, this show suffered from a lack of preservation. In early 2019, Lost Media Wiki user Ethan Parmit spearheaded a search effort to locate missing episodes for 2 Hub Network shows, The Game of Life that we previously covered, and Family Game Night. Both were on Tubi for a while before being removed. In early 2021, Grigio Guy, who's come up in a few of my videos, was able to dig up 6 full episodes on YouTube. Soon after, Race Olympics would join the search. Just like with the Game of Life, they reached out to the show's staff and crew to no avail, but were able to get in touch with a game show collector who claimed to have all the episodes, but was not willing to share them. So the search continued. Soon after, Reddit user It's Debunny YT made a post and further boosted the search. Both Ethan Parmit and Race Olympics came across another channel that had a few episodes who was willing to sell them. Others would join the search like Halo Fan and Jared Oswald, who would make some more discoveries. And on February 11th, 2023, Lost Media Wiki user Fishman2020 discovered that some episodes were available for streaming in New Zealand. To top it all off, a few days later, they found another lost episode. As of the making of this video, 98 episodes from Family Game Night had been found, leaving only 3 missing, all from season 5, episode 4, 13, and episode 16. If you have any of these episodes from Family Game Night, please post them online. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing. And as always, if you have any suggestions for future videos, let me know in the comments. This is Mike with All Things Lost. See you soon.